Furious world leaders are sticking the dagger into Donald Trump's chest and twisting it in his face. Let's talk about what's happening in India right now, where Ursula von der Leyen, the European Union Commission president, is meeting with Prime Minister Modi of India, and they are entering into a massive trade deal. Donald Trump has pushed the European Union and India closer together, the same way Donald Trump is pushing the rest of the world to forge closer alliances while the U.S. gets weaker and isolates itself. As The Economist notes, Donald Trump deserves some credit. Without his adventurism, his predilection for tariffs, and his habit of alienating allies, the two big democracies might not have found the courage to strike a deal. So Ursula von der Leyen's been in India for something called Republic Day, a big a military parade that takes place in India. And here's what's being posted right now about this incredible EU-India trade deal that's 20 years in the making. Together, the EU and India represent almost 1/5 of global trade. In 2024, EU-India trade in goods exceeded 120 billion euros. And the two largest democracies, they're saying right here, the two largest democracies in the world, together EU and India represent 1/5 of global trade. Now, if you were paying attention to the MeidasTouch network and what was going on in Davos, Switzerland, while Donald Trump was ranting and raving like a lunatic, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Union Commission, was talking about entering into the mother of all trade deals between the EU and India. Listen to what she had to say here. Play this clip.
There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. One that would create a market of 2 billion people, accounting for almost 1/4 of global GDP.
And as noted, this is a trade deal 20 years in the making. And when you go through some of the terms of this deal, let's just take a look. India has reportedly reached this trade deal with EU and will cut tariffs on cars from 110% to 40%, with tariffs eventually falling to 10%. India is making trade deals with the EU, and Canada is making trade deals with China. Global trade is shifting. So let's take a look at what's actually happening with this trade deal. Massive tariff cuts on major goods. Big win for Indian exporters. Indian sectors expected to benefit the most. Textiles, pharmaceuticals, jewelry, engineering goods, IT and professional services. You've got sensitive sectors protected. Agriculture and dairy products are largely excluded for now. Strategic and geopolitical angle. It's not just trade. The deal strengthens India and EU supply chains, investment flows, economic alignment. Transition from old tariff preferences to this new, more closer to free trade relationship. And the scale of the deal is absolutely massive right now. And again, EU, India, EU, South America, Canada, China, Canada, EU. Do you see what's happening before our eyes? Meanwhile, what was Donald Trump doing? He was posting the following yesterday. Our trade deals are very important to America. In each of these deals, we have acted swiftly to reduce our tariffs in line with the transactions agreed to. We, of course, expect our trading partners to do the same. South Korea's legislature is not living up to its deal with the United States. President Lee and I reached a great deal for both countries on July 30th, 2025, and we reaffirmed these terms while I was in Korea on October 29th, 2025. Why hasn't the Korean legislature approved it? Because the Korean legislature hasn't enacted our historic trade agreement, which is their own prerogative. I am hereby increasing South Korean tariffs on autos, lumber, pharma, and all other reciprocal tariffs from 15% to 25%. Thank you for your attention to this matter. As Carl Quintanilla posts this article from the Financial Times, the lesson of the past 2 weeks, whether you're the EU, South Korea, Canada, or any other trading nation, you may think you have a deal with Donald Trump, but you absolutely don't. And this was from last week, where the financial firm Yardeni said the following about Japan. that the US president spent the last week effectively undoing trade deals with the EU that in the UK thought were set, how can Tokyo be sure that its comparatively low 15% UF tariffs are safe? What if Trump suddenly decides Japan isn't being sufficiently compliant? By the way, just substitute that with South Korea. So you see what's happening on a global scale here? This weekend, Donald Trump said that he would be imposing additional tariffs, 100% tariffs on Canada for entering into a trade deal with China, which Donald Trump previously said that he was okay with. And then before that, he said he was putting tariffs on all these EU nations for not letting him invade Greenland. And now he's saying he's putting tariffs on South Korea. The world's fed up with this. The world is done with this. Just take a look right here as Arnaud Bertrand posts. It's an incredible number of people that now only 16% of EU citizens consider the United States to be an ally. Even in the UK, it's down to a meager 25%. In fact, perceptions of the US as an ally are in complete collapse globally. They said only India is a very odd exception, and now we're seeing a decline in India as well. Now, before Ursula von der Leyen took her trip this week to India to announce this mother of all trade deals, as she said, you had Germany's Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He was at the World Economic Forum, and he talked about how he met with Prime Minister Modi of India. You see him right here meeting with Prime Minister Modi back on January 12th. He goes, "The partnership with India is a high priority for Germany. Dear Prime Minister Modi, thank you for inviting me to your home state. I greatly appreciate the special gesture and our friendly and open exchange." By the way, do you see how these world leaders are talking to each other? I appreciate our exchange. We want cooperation. We're talking about working with each other, while Donald Trump, again, is out there ranting and raving like a lunatic and making the United States weaker.
The world may feel like it's metaphorically on fire right now, but we also have to make sure we keep highlighting one truly existential issue that still isn't getting enough attention, and that's climate change. Because this is no longer about the distant future. This is urgent, and it's happening right now. A major new report warns that the environmental crisis is arriving decades earlier than scientists once expected. I want to highlight this new article in The Independent. It's called "Climate Change is Here. Experts Warn Environmental Crisis is Decades Ahead of Forecasts." Be sure to check this out. So according to experts, the extreme events we were once told to expect in the 2050s and beyond are already here. Last year was the third hottest year on record, and the World Meteorological Organization says that 2025 has continued a run of extraordinary global temperatures. The EU now warns that the Paris Agreement's 1.5-degree threshold could be broken before 2030. Samantha Burgess of the Copernicus Climate Change Service put it bluntly. She said climate change is here, and we're seeing events today that models once predicted for the middle of the century. The oceans absorbed more heat in 2025 than any year in modern records. We've seen an increase in wildfires. The Atlantic saw 3 Category 5 hurricanes in a single year, including Hurricane Melissa, which intensified rapidly because of warmer seas, leaving communities with little time to respond. Research from the Grantham Institute shows that climate change has tripled heat-related deaths during European heat waves. In the global south, the impacts are even more devastating and often underreported, with deadly floods in Pakistan and severe drought across East Africa. The International Federation of the Red Cross warns that these disasters are piling on top of existing crises, pushing vulnerable communities to the brink. And even in what insurers like Swiss Re call a, quote, quiet year, economic losses still approached historic averages. These are not normal conditions. I want to be clear about this. This is the reality of climate change now. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make it clear that you care about these issues, because we're going to keep covering them, and we're not looking away. Okay, Ben, back to you.
Here's what Friedrich Merz says during his speech at Davos about the trade deal that was going to be entered between Germany and the EU. Here, play this clip. Between EU, which includes Germany, and India. Play this clip.
In a few days' time, the President of the European Commission will travel to India to establish the principles of a free trade agreement between the subcontinent and the European Union. I was in India a week ago, and I have no doubt whatsoever that the era of great powers presents an opportunity for all of us and for all countries that favor regulations above arbitrary rule and see greater benefit in free trade than in protectionism and isolationism.
Now, back in Canada, you have Mélanie Joly the industry minister of Prime Minister Carney's government, talking about the difference between 2025 and 2026. And she's not afraid of the threats, and Canada's no longer afraid of the threats and the bullying from Donald Trump and his regime. Here, play this clip.
Well, because, 2025 was about reacting to what is happening in the US. 2026 will be about being proactive, having a plan, stick to it, and make sure basically that we're able to control what we can control.
But members of the Trump regime, like Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, when he wasn't saying the Second Amendment doesn't exist and that if you go to a protest with a concealed carry, you deserve to be murdered by the government, he was further attacking Canada. And so he was on state regime media last night, known as Fox, and he said, Canada depends on the U.S. So Prime Minister Carney called Donald Trump and started begging him. And he said, Donald, I'm so sorry for everything I said at Davos. Please forgive me, Donald. Prime Minister Carney didn't say that. When Prime Minister Carney's in front of Donald Trump, in front of the world, we see what Prime Minister Carney's saying. Don't you notice that these Trump regime proxies, these Trump regime sycophants, all these things happen in quiet, these trade deals that Donald Trump makes up and nobody knows what the hell Trump's talking about. Or yes, Prime Minister Carney in private said, I'm so sorry, Donald. These people are delusional and they are causing long-term harm. Here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Let's talk about the Prime Minister, or if you prefer, Governor of Canada, and him threatening to break economic alliances with the U.S., go with China. The president has threatened 100% tariff. What impact would that have?
It would be a disaster for Canada. I was in the Oval with the president today. He spoke to Prime Minister Carney, who was very aggressively walking back some of the unfortunate remarks he made at Davos. And Sean, I'm not sure what the Prime Minister was thinking. Of course, Canada depends on the U.S. There's much more north-south trade than there could ever be east-west trade. He talks about middle countries having to do their own thing. And I'm old enough to remember when French President Francois Mitterrand tried to go down that route. It failed back in the 80s. It'll fail now. And Canada is linked to the U.S., and the Prime Minister should do what's best for the Canadian people rather than trying to push his own globalist agenda.
And then yesterday morning, you had Mike Walls, Donald Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, attacking Denmark and Greenland again. They're back at that, saying, oh, if you get cancer in Greenland, nobody will take care of you. Here, play this clip.
But they have ignored Greenland from a defense standpoint, and they have ignored the Greenlandic native Inuit people. Final point there, if you look in contrast to Alaska natives, there's an Alaska Sovereign Wealth Fund, Shannon, that has over $80 billion in assets benefiting Alaskan natives. If you get a cancer diagnosis in Greenland right now, it's darn near a death sentence. Denmark has not invested in the way that it should have over the years.
What are you even talking about? By the way, even Lindsey Graham, MAGA Republican, you don't get more MAGA Republican than Lindsey Graham, said that if Donald Trump doesn't take military action now in Iran to help the protesters who were massacred and to overthrow the Ayatollah, or if Donald Trump doesn't go and support the Kurds in northern Syria, it will be a betrayal 1,000,000 times the size of Benghazi, Lindsey Graham said. Lindsey Graham writes, I pray for Trump and his team to make the right decisions to keep Americans safe at this dangerous time. History tells us the right decision is to stand by those who stand with America. History tells us that evil cannot be accommodated. It has to be defeated. I remember how sick to my stomach I felt when we abandoned our people in Benghazi. I'll hold that against Hillary Clinton till my dying day. Our people have to include those who would be a friend of America in the face of oppression, the protesters in Iran and the brave Kurds. These are difficult decisions, but to abandon the Iranian people and the brave Kurds would be, in my view, Benghazi times 1,000,000. I'm confident Trump, who had a marvelous job of protecting America, will make the right call. God bless him. What are you talking about? Donald Trump was spraying perfume on the leader of al-Julani, the former head of al-Qaeda, who's now the leader of Syria, who was in the Oval Office, and sniffing him and saying how good looking he is. Like, what are you talking about right now? Just more BS from Lindsey Graham. But mother of all trade deals right now between India and Europe, U.S. getting weaker than ever. And we'll keep you posted every step of the way here in the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.